Lesson 14, Breakpoints. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the last of the debugging tools. There's a problem when you have to debug late in a program, particularly on the far side of a loop that has to loop through several hundred rows. So we want to have a way to force VBA to stop executing before a specific line. And we'll also talk about another tool called Run to Cursor. So let's get started. We have the same macro that we used in the last lesson. This macro has a lengthy loop here that goes through every single row and does a few lines of code for those specific rows. If you can imagine, if you have 700 rows, it's going to have to go through and execute this 700 times, which would be very tedious for you to do using F8. I mean, just imagine we're going through F8, 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 F8. And even if you just held down F8, it's going to take a long time for Excel to get to the other end of that loop. So we have a couple of very cool tricks. The first one is called a breakpoint. And to set a breakpoint, we're going to come over here to the left of our code in this gray area. This is called the breakpoint area. And we'll just click next to a line of code and we get this maroon dot and it's highlighted in the maroon color. That basically is a breakpoint. So when you have a breakpoint, you can just start the macro running and it will stop when it gets to the breakpoint. You know, it's a quick way to very quickly skip this loop. It's also a way to discover when something inside of your if statement is true. So for example, if I wanted to test this one line of code, this line of code right here, I could set up a breakpoint for that line of code, and basically that'll say, hey, go ahead and run through the loop, but as soon as you get to one of the items where the value is S99, I want to stop and I want to see that. So let's take a look at how this is working. I'll just come up here to the top and we'll click Run. And you see that it runs all the way through the loop. So the final row started around 700 and got all the way down to row 410. So in other words, about 300 times through that loop before we finally found one of the values that we want to delete. So I can see that we're on row 410. I can switch back to Excel. I can find row 410. I see that sure enough, this is rep S99. I can run the next line of code. I'll press F8. And yes, they deleted the S99 row. Okay, good. Well, now that I know that that piece of code is working, I'm going to turn off that breakpoint because I don't want to be alerted every single time we find S99. So I'll click again, and I want to let the loop finish and stop down here. So I can click the Continue button. And here it just very quickly ran through the remaining 400 rows of the loop, and we're now down into the rest of the code. Stopped right before the breakpoint, so it's about to figure out what table a row is. All right, so breakpoints, very easy to toggle on and off. The one thing you want to do before you send this macro out to anyone is you want to make sure that you get rid of all breakpoints, especially if you have multiple modules and thousands of lines of code. It's easy to forget that there's a breakpoint that's left somewhere, so you always want to come back to Debug, Clear All Breakpoints. And that will turn all of the breakpoints everywhere off, and you're good to go. So breakpoints are a great way to either stop inside of a if statement or just get beyond a loop. Now, one other thing that we have here is something called Run to Cursor. So let's say that we start testing this code using F8. I'm now into the loop. I've gone through the loop a couple of times, and I really want to get beyond the loop. I can come down here with the cursor and click on a row after the loop, and we can go up to Debug and choose something called Run to Cursor. Run to Cursor. You can see that this is Control F8. Control F8. When we press Control F8, it's going to run all of those lines of code repeatedly and then stop right before it runs this line of code, Debug, Run to Cursor. So that was a great way to run all those lines of code. Okay, so there you have it. I hope you found that helpful, the last of our topics on the debugging section. I know that we haven't even started to take a look at the code that's been written and how to understand that, and we'll be doing that in part 3, where we start to take a look at the code that's generated by the macro recorder and how to understand that code.
Looking to advance your career by acquiring new skills? Tired of expensive off-site training programs? Wish you could learn from the best instructors in the industry? Look no further than live lessons. Self-paced, personal video instruction by the world's leading technology publishers. Each live lesson comes with a DVD featuring 3 to 4 hours of instructor-led classroom training, sample program code that allows you to work along with your personal instructor, and an example-rich study guide. Live lessons allow you to watch the entire course from start to finish, or navigate directly to any of the individual lessons. You'll literally watch over the shoulder of your instructor as he shows you how to build state-of-the-art applications. Live lessons, the power of the world's leading technology experts at your fingertips. To learn more, visit mylivelessons.com today.